Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have an awesome guest on the show today. I have Magnolia Sevenler. Magnolia, excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited as well too. Magnolia is doing so many awesome things. I'm super excited to kind of dive in. But of course, before we do that, I want to read a little bit more about Magnolia so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Magnolia is a founder and CEO of Pendulum, a platform and event series that blends culture and commerce to reimagine how founders and investors connect. With a background in producing high impact cultural events from Formula One to Art Basel to Fashion Week and music festivals featuring headliners like Tiesto and the Chainsmokers, she brings an experiential, design-oriented mindset to building communities in the startup ecosystem. At Pendulum, Magnolia leads the founder series, an intentionally curated set of gatherings focused on small, high-quality interactions rather than large-scale networking events. She designs these events to facilitate meaningful relationships building rather than transactional meetings. And one of the really cool things I loved around everything that Magnolia is doing is I was reading and it kind of reminds me, like I say, so many times your environment will determine the altitude of what you're able to do and what you're able to accomplish. I think so many times we forget about how important that environment is. And I love that their DNA is rooted in designing spaces where relationships feel natural and not forced, and the importance of course, quality over quantity. So, Magnolia, excited to have you on the show. Are you ready to speak to the IMCL community?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's get it started then. So, to kind of kick everything off, I would love to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm one of those founders that I just always wanted to be a founder. I love entrepreneurship. Since I was a kid, I've always, had some kind of business I was trying to start even in high school. And I grew up around my entire family. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so it wasn't such a foreign, intimidating thing to start a business. I like meet so many people, and it's just like they'll go off and they'll work at Instagram, Facebook, but starting a company is like just so scary to them. For me, it was like always like that was the only option I had. Like I
Mhm.
was a very creative person um since I was very young. And I went to design school, and that's kind of what really shaped how I see the world. And I look at everything that I do through the lens of design thinking. And so, whether it's a brand, a product, building a team, I approach it like a creative project. And so when I was in design school, I actually launched a influencer marketing platform that later became influence.com. And so that experience was really formative for me because it was something that we built from the ground up. We built our own proprietary software, and it was back in, I think this was like 8 years ago. So it was when influencer marketing was still becoming a thing.
Mhm.
And through that, I've met so many creative people, worked with a lot of cool brands and, connecting brands and influencers. And we, played a big role in creating those campaigns and doing a lot of storytelling. And that experience really, was kind of the gateway that led me to events because a lot of the brands, a lot of the projects we were working on also had this event side to it. And I met so many, interesting, cool people through that. And that's kind of what built my network. And over time, um, Pendulum was kind of born through that later on. But I initially, I think it was, I had my own agency after influence.com. And one of my friends actually was building a dating app. And so I started helping him business development, events, everything you can imagine from the UI, UX to everything a startup needs. We were just doing everything. So I was kind of like used to And I like the process of, like, building every aspect of a brand, from choosing the name. I mean, we have Pendulum now. I mean, we had 3 different names before, so we rebranded, like, it's, like, always an evolution, like, to find the business name and, like, the team and the website, the branding, and so, I was, going back to, working on this, dating app. It was a friend of mine, and so, I think, like, that's the reason, I think networking is so important,
And
and
have
building uh these relationships that matter, because I went way back with this person that then hired me to start building his business. And it's a really cool, and that app is now first rounds on me. So they evolved from a dating app to a networking app as well.
nice.
And through that, I met my investors, that then approached me to kind of start, because we were doing a lot of events, at the time, and so, uh, I think just, building those, experiential events was what led, Pendulum to kind of become an experiential events company, and that's kind of how it all started.
Nice. I appreciate you so much in sharing that. And I so often, say like I love like kind of hearing the journey of how those things come about. But I'm gonna start using the word evolution because you talked around how those things are evolving and how those things are coming of age and how you've been able
Yeah.
to do all those things. And I don't know if you ever heard we talked a little bit around Steve Jobs before we popped on, but he has this Stanford commencement speech where he talks a lot around you can't connect the dots, looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So as you're kind of explaining
Yes.
and you're saying, okay, I'm starting to see like because I know all the awesome things you're doing and how those things probably came about, and it ended up birthing in what Pendulum is doing now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, um all my past experiences was like, I would work on so many different things, and I'm like, why am I working on this? I could just be hiring for someone. But that's really about it. Like, when you're starting a business, it's like, sometimes you don't have the money to go and hire the best, right? So you kind of have to learn how to hire, to learn how to do all these little things. And I think all of my experiences, building influence.com, building an agency, hiring people, is what was the foundation that's now kind of made Pendulum so successful.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book that I swear by called Range, and I mention it often because it talks a lot around the problems of tomorrow are going to be solved by people that have that range of experiences. A lot of the great entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
CEOs and business owners aren't just locked in on doing one thing. Usually, they may not do all the things, but they at least have a vantage point to understand how these things are interconnected, how they're in play, how they're designed in a way to make sure that at the end of the day, those things those goals, come to
Yeah.
fruition, those KPIs are hit.
Yeah, yeah, and, I give, talks at, entrepreneurship classes at, Parsons occasionally, and, um, I got the same questions, like, students will be like, "Should I," like, they're so excited to just launch their brand, and it's a part of their thesis, so they'll always, like, ask, and I'll get this question a lot, is like, "Do you really think I should go out and get an internship or work? Because I really just wanna start my brand." And I'm like, "Yes, you need to go and, like, work and be out there." And I think, everything I learned in school, like, didn't really prepare me for business and, like, starting a company. You learn that through trial and error. You learn that by hiring the wrong people. You learn that by overpaying agencies. You learn
Mhm.
that by, trusting people too much.
Yeah.
You learn that by delegating everything and then, regretting it. So I think it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you can only learn that by actually doing it,
Yeah.
and going through all of, the real life stuff. You can't just, like, read about it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I love that you share that, and unfortunately, I do know exactly what you mean because, we do the same thing, but it's part of the journey, it's part of the learning, it's part of the experience, it's part of that evolution, as we kind of touched on. So I would love to drill down more and hear a little bit more on what you're doing at Pendulum, how you're making that impact, how you're serving and creating that experience for clients and customers. Like, could you take us through a little bit more on what that looks like and what you're doing there?
Yes, of course. Pendulum at its core, we're an experiential events company. I like to say that it's really a community company. So we design gatherings that bring together founders, creatives, investors. And we actually started out doing events around cultural moments. So around Formula One, Fashion Week, Art Basel, different sporting events. And it was initially to kind of build on the community that we had and do parties. And through that, so there's two parts to our business. One is the production side. That was kind of born through doing those cultural events. And that's Pendulum Live. And then the second part is our event series is that we do. So, when we were doing, big parties around cultural moments, we had a network of, like, a lot of, like, founders and creatives that were attending these, and people, like, would just reach out all the time, like, "Oh, I wanna connect with this person. Can you connect me with that person?" And that's kind of how, our Pendulum Founder Series was born.
Mhm.
It was really to create it we already had this network of really cool, interesting people that, we wanted to bring together in intimate settings. And so now our founder series really revolves around it's different themes. We host them in New York and LA. And they're always, the different we'll do Web3 events, we'll do an event on content, we'll do an event on AI. And so it's essentially to bring together and curate the right type of founders that might want to meet each other, and then a handful of investors that can also kind of like meet and hopefully, work together.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we theme each one of those, very differently, and, we tie in a panel around it. It's 30-minute panel, it's really cool founders, and then we follow it by a mixer, and, even that's evolved. We started out just doing, founder investor mixers, and then, we added the keynote speeches, and then, we went a little further, and now we're doing the panels to create that educational component to it, and, we feature founders at them too. So we'll do founder interviews. We'll um, get those interviews on our socials and share those. And so it's also a way for us to promote founders in our network as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, especially like being able to kind of understand like how powerful those events and those experiences are, and to be able to do that, like you said, for the cultural standpoint, but also from the founder even standpoint, and be able to kind of understand like what that looks like. Because I think as you said, you kind of touched on like networking is such a huge thing. Your network is kind of like one of those really impactful things that sometimes it's hard to quantify, but a lot of times,
Yeah.
if you need something and then you're like, "Oh, I do have this connection," or even as you've been able to do is create a solution to those problems, it ends up being like a really powerful, asset, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And my networking um journey has evolved as well. Like I used to just be like, I want to go out to every networking event. I want to meet really cool people and get to know as many people as I can. And at the time, it worked. But like looking back at it, I don't think knowing a lot of people is valuable. I think knowing the right people and investing that, like, if I look back and how I met my investors and how I got to that point, I would never just think I was like running around from event to event, and it was because I knew a lot of people that connected me somehow, and it happened. It was really about, uh, the relationships, that I built along the way, and, I knew someone for a few years that could vouch for me, and then I worked with that person for another year that then wanted to build a business, and so I really think it's like people ask all the time, is like, "Should I go to every networking event and meet as many people as I can and just like build my Rolodex of contacts. And I'm like, no, I really think it's about like, what do you want to do? Like, what's your intention? Are you trying to find an investor? Are you trying to find co-founder? Are you trying to find, a colleague? And then you can kind of filter through and get to know people over time, you know? And I think that is you have to invest the time into the people that you meet because, you know, you could think you know someone, but you really don't.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's such a huge thing because I remember the first time I think I started going to a networking event and I saw that person, I guess you might call him a serial networker, where he was, passing out cards, shaking everybody's hand, talking to the people. It's like, "Hey, I would love to do that," but I think more as we evolve, as we go through the journey of your life, you start to realize that it's kinda like that 80-20 rule where you realize, like, a lot of the relationships are not the vast number of cards you have, it's usually those deep dive relationships that you've been able to build over a period of time. Those end up
Yeah.
being the investments that quote unquote pay off because you have gone deeper, not just gone wider, you've gone deeper in terms of like knowing who that person is,
Yeah,
when makes them
yeah.
tick, and being able to kind of be a connector to that degree too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's so because trust is such a big thing, whether you're gonna collaborate on a business, I think, or a project, I think knowing, and that's why we kind of curate the room because, meeting one person can really change your life in a great way or it can ruin it,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's why we're really intentional about the people that we invite. We've known for a long time. We have someone recommend them. There's a referral. Someone's vouched for them that we also trust. So there's this, you know, I heard a story the other day and it was like, wow, like one of someone we work with, they also were doing really great events in LA and it was just one event he went to, partnered with the wrong person and then went out of business. And I was like,
Mm.
in a matter of like a few months. And I thought to myself, like, wow, like just meeting one person can change your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You never think about what is it, even blessing or a lesson? And sometimes we want to make sure that we're getting those blessings, those opportunities to kind of succeed. And I almost wonder if this is maybe part of your secret sauce. I wonder if it's you and also the business or a combination of both. But I feel like I definitely love that curation. But I heard you say, early on, like how you some to some degree see the world different. I imagine seeing the opportunity to curate and connect people and part of like how you're able to have these international events and say this person probably should connect with this person. Do you feel like your ability to be able to kind of see the forest for the trees, to understand the real, I guess, the reason and the quality behind connections, do you feel like that's part of your in the business's secret sauce and what makes it unique?
Yes. I mean, I think, you know, doing a lot of these, different type of parties, you end up knowing a lot of people. So people will always ask you like, "Hey, can you connect me with this person? Do you know this person?" And I've done that a lot in the past, and I still do. And I think, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And I think, as you get older and you have more experience, the type of people like to connect with who. And it has started companies. People have went off and started companies together. People have found great jobs. People have done great projects through it. So creating the events, I think, is a big way to bring all those people together. But then, intentionally kind of introducing people was a big thing for me. I think I'm intentional about my network and my time and I'm really disciplined of where I put my energy. So for me spending it's not about going to the big parties and we've started doing the little intimate gatherings, but it was born from the big parties because at the big parties and like big events, it's just everybody's kind of like socializing, running around. And for me, I find that I connect and really get to know someone at the small intimate dinners, small gatherings, and that's why we've created those events ourselves. So it's something that I was like it was so useful for me, and that's why we have this, series that's specifically just for founders, and investors too, but, um, yeah, I think that's, a really important.
Part, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
and I love too, like, I think so many times, like, I remember when I had my first sales jobs, I had outside sales jobs, and I remember talking to the more seasoned reps, and I was like, "How do you know this person's not gonna close? Like, what are you seeing?" And there's like, you'll pick it up, and a lot of times we pick those things up because we have done the 10,000 hours of work, because we've had so many conversations, because things have
Yeah.
gone good, sometimes things have not so good, and
Yeah.
you start to
Yeah.
sharpen that saw and be able to see those things. So I love you talking around your experience, because I think so many times when people say like, "Hey, how are you able to curate and know this person would click with this person?" It's not because you just snap your fingers and it happened. It's because
Yeah.
you've been doing the connecting, the collaboration, the talking, all those things over the years. And I imagine that helps you to be able to, spark your
Yeah.
spidey sense, so to speak.
Yeah, it's very reflective sometimes. I think your unconscious parallels your, conscious,
Yeah.
and your subconscious, and
Yeah.
so I think a lot of the times it's if you've had the experience and you've done it, you're intuitive about things, and for me, it really is like, okay, like, I gotta just, like, go with my gut on this one, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Whether it's like, a business decision, someone to work with, someone to hire. I find now that if I don't go with my gut, I'm always regretting it. So I just go with my
None.
gut now. And sometimes you don't even have like valid reasons for
Yeah.
not doing something. It's just a vibe.
Mhm.
But I think, if you've had enough bad experiences, that vibe is usually right.
Yes.
you know?
Yes. And a lot of
Yeah,
times, it's not rooted in
yeah,
nothing, is rooted in those bad experiences, which makes sure, that antenna go off and say, "Hey, this isn't quite right. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not right."
yeah, and I think you should, like, everyone should make a lot of mistakes. Um, Not enough to blow up their business, but, they should make a lot of mistakes to be able to learn early on because, your business just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and, like, as a founder, as the CEO of your business, like, everything kind of depends on you. Everything is you're accountable for all the decisions at the end of the day. And even if you're a founder, if you're not the right CEO, you're accountable to go and find the right CEO that could run your business.
Yeah, absolutely, and then responsibility is such
Yeah.
a huge thing. So, I wanted to, switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. You might have already touched on this, but this could be an app, a book, or a habit that you have. But what's something you lean on that makes you more effective and efficient?
The one CEO hack I have, honestly, is I would say like having mentors that you really look up to that have done what you're doing, um, is a big hack. I think there's, like, a lot of, like, books you can read on, like, managing people, negotiating, how to run your business, but at the end of the day, I think it's really so valuable to have people around you, and for me, I'm really fortunate that I have, investors that are very well seasoned. So, you know, when I'm making big decisions, they're there to guide me. I'm not completely alone in that journey. And so, if you don't have that, I think it's such an important thing to go and find, someone that's done what you're doing, um, or has done it and successfully, and that can guide you through some of these, big decisions that people have to go through in their business. And, another CEO hack that one that you could find that mentor is being really intentional, about your calendar, how you spend your time, what events you go to. And that's why we've, created this founder series is so people can come and find mentors, and they have. And these mentors can really guide you into, and not even just guide you, I think like introduce you to so many different people as well. So I would say that's a big hack for me is having well-seasoned founders and investors around me.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and of
Yeah.
course, in alignment with everything that you're doing, because I think, all advice is not necessarily good advice, and I think being able to kinda filter that and say, hey, where is this coming from? What have you been able to accomplish? Things like that, not in a abrasive way, but in a way just to kind of say, like, where is this advice coming from, and be able to kind of filter through that is such a huge
Yeah.
thing, because when you get that advice and you're able to stand on the shoulders of giants because the people have done what you've done or something close, or at least a cousin to it, it allows you to be able to see further and do things on a different level. It doesn't reduce the amount, well, it doesn't
Yeah.
you know, block you from mistakes and block you from things not going your way,
Yeah.
but it does help you to be able to stand on that person's experience, their evolution, and their journey as well too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you see that a lot with people asking for advice. Like you always have that one friend that asks everyone for their advice.
Yes.
And I'm always like, you should ask advice or opinions to people that have what you want, that have done what you want, that have been successful. Because otherwise, you're just polluting yourself with. And I know this because I've done it.
Yeah.
Because I've been that person that just is like, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do it like this? But what do you think? What do you think? And and it just clouds your judgment. And there's an endless amount of opinions that you can gather. And at some point, you just like, okay, like I have to be accountable and make the decision, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, one, you gotta trust your intuition, and then take advice and the opinions of people that have been successful at whatever it is you're asking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we start to kind of realize that, time and energy is not infinite, it's finite. As you said so well, the second hack is just being able to kind of protect your calendar, protect the time and how you're spending that
Mhm.
time. But also, realizing that when we're getting, we're asking for advice and we're getting 100 different opinions, that is taxing, and that's taking energy away from actually executing on a thing that you should be leaning into. So I think it's
Yeah.
so important to be very aware and, as you said so well, intentional about those things, because that allows you at
Mhm.
the end of the day
Mhm.
to get to where you want to be, which is ultimately like the goal and why we're, doing the things that we're doing.
Yes. I completely
Absolutely.
agree.
So
Absolutely.
you might have already touched on this as well, but what would you consider to be a little bit more of what I like to call a CEO nugget? So this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. I like to say it might be something you would tell someone at the events or your favorite client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
The CEO nugget. I would probably say, and I know we talked about this a little earlier, and I was like, not everybody's Steve Jobs. So,
Yeah.
like, the advice, if you're building a small business, you gotta, have like the nuggets that work for you.
Yeah.
And so for me, a personal nugget is that, like, I am a perfectionist, and I've kind of like now as I've gotten older, I'm like, if I meet 80%, it's good enough. Like
Mhm.
80% is that's 100 to me.
Yeah.
And being a perfectionist, I used to just try to make the perfect event, the perfect app, the perfect product, and you you end up just losing on time. And
Mhm.
speed is so important that like you can iterate everything over time. But if you wait for perfect, and I have so many friends that, want to start something, that have been working on a business plan, and they'll just work on it forever and just miss the opportunities.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really about, like the best companies are built through iteration. So you just have to put it out, test it, and your customers. I mean, this is such a, it's very, I feel like, a cliche advice, but it really is like the foundation for me. It's like, just get it out there fast.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, whether it's like a party, your attendees will tell you what was wrong. If it's an app, you gotta have your users test it out and give you new ideas. Cause you just, like, try to make it perfect, and it's like you're in, like, this perspective of just your thoughts and your experience, um, I think that you lose on time. And so I try to apply that mindset into everything that we build. Whether it's hiring or, letting someone go. Instagram is my favorite example because when it was launched, it was just a photo app. So no one knew that it was like a social media app. And that's like it, and so things just evolve. Like my first event is something that I can't like your first event, you're like, I want it to be the best, right? Like this is
Yeah.
my first event. Now looking back, I'm like, that was the worst event I've ever done. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
you just don't know, you don't know how to put teams together, you don't know how to work with vendors, you don't know how to choose the vendors or, like, audio and sound and everything, and it kinda builds through and same thing with, like, an app, right? It's like, "Oh, do we need that feature? Do we need this, other thing?" So I think, yeah, definitely speed and getting, your product out to market and not waiting for perfection is, like, such a big one for me.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. And if you want to hear, somebody that, gets better over time, go back and listen to my first episodes where I couldn't get the name of the guests out there and all those things happen. We go through all those things, but we don't realize
Yeah.
that that's part of the evolution. That's part of the journey. That's part of the things of what makes us who we are. It's not that we start on day one, we're perfect. It's that we start to iterate, we start to get better, we start to improve from
Yeah.
there. I almost wonder, do you feel like your design background, you being able to kind of like see things and understand things, do you feel like that's something you were, I don't want to say warring with, but do you feel like that is something that kind of brought out a lot more of that perfection to make sure that things are perfect and how they're ultimately like set up and should be?
Yes, definitely, because I think when you're a creative person, you're a very aesthetic person, and if aesthetics matter to you, it makes it more difficult because sometimes you just have to kind of like scrap it all together and put it out in business. And I think it's more difficult for a creative person to do that. So you're
Yeah.
like, I just want it to look perfect, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to look perfect. It just needs to kind of like operate
Yeah.
perfectly over time. And the only way that's going to happen is if you just launch things and so, yeah, I think, for me, it's definitely a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I struggle with that as well too. But I think it's such a thing. It's funny you said that 80%. A lot of times, especially for the people that are quote unquote perfectionists, their 80% is actually like 180%. And usually, if you get it out
Yeah,
there, even there, it's going to be so much further than what somebody that doesn't have the experience or doesn't know
yeah.
what's happening is. And I think when you are able to kind of like identify that and kind of use that superpower for the greater good and understand that, hey, the great companies, the Instagrams of the world, whatever, we can, and how we define great are those that iterate on a regular basis. We can use that superpower we have and then couple it with that knowledge. And then that's when you really are going to an entirely different level.
Exactly. I mean, especially, like, in tech and, like, lifestyle businesses, like, you can really iterate, and you just
Mhm.
need to get it out there fast so people
Yeah.
know your product. I mean, maybe, like, if you're, like, creating a vaccine, definitely go to 500%. Take your
Yeah.
time. You know what I mean? Be a perfectionist. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, brain surgery or any of those things are
Yeah,
extremely
but
important.
not when you're building an app.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we start to realize that one of the books I love is the Lean Startup book. And one of the
Oh, I
parts of
love
that
that
is
book.
the
Yeah.
MVP. You get it out there so you can get feedback because a lot of times
Yeah.
we have assumptions of like, I think this is going to work because of X. And when you start to put it out into the world, the ethos, or the environment, you start to get feedback. You realize what you thought was the most important is sometimes the least important thing, and you start to be
Yeah.
able to kind of lean into that. And I think that's one of the things that just hearing from you, like being comfortable and evolving is also like one of those huge things because I think so many times we fall in love with our product and service. We don't want to let go of that to improve it and get it better so that it can make the impact that we ultimately wanted to have. So, yeah, I love that you've been able to kind of do that as well too.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Absolutely. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. We're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, Magnolia, what does being a CEO mean to you?
So for me, I mean, there's a big difference between being a founder CEO and being a traditional CEO. So as a founder CEO, um, ultimately, I think for me, it's accountability because every part of your business is like any success, any failure kind of all comes back to you. And a founder CEO, you really end up having to learn every aspect of the business somewhat so you can kind of hire for the right roles for the and build the right team. And it means a lot of things, but um it's really accountability because it's just um maybe I can build on this, but
Yeah.
um it's also being the visionary steward of the business. And I think I always say this is like you don't set the vision and just kind of like delegate to your team. You're setting the vision every day. You're setting the vision every day and you're building the architect of the energy and the culture of the company. And when you're a founder CEO, it really is your uh job to kind of motivate your team because you need to and create that culture because you have like um so when you hire on a startup it's like you need to have the team that kind of cares about the problem you're trying to solve because you end up having to do so many different things that you need someone that cares about uh, the business. And I think I heard this the other day, and I just loved it. And it's like a company is like a mirror about you. It's
Mm,
like a walk into your house, and so it's like you step into someone's house, and they've made 1,000 decisions about it, and a company is like that, except for you've made 100,000 decisions. And so seeing the company, you can see into my house and someone's mind basically and everything they do and who they surround themselves with and the culture of the company and so what I've created and uh, someone it could be very different for someone else.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that definition and perspective, especially that, that accountability part. And I think so many times we forget that we're also very much so accountable to the mission, the vision. That's something that we have to do on a regular basis to kind of, attend to that. And I love, love, love that thought. I never, I always say like, as much as we're building the business, we're also building ourselves. But I never thought of that also being and having a mirror in front of you. And a lot of times what's happening in the
Yeah.
business can be a reflection of you for better or for not so better, and as well too. And
Yeah.
getting that vision and that awareness is such an important thing because if we want to take things to a different level or a different place or accomplish different goals, we often have to do things differently. And sometimes that starts and ends with the CEO.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what it really means is CEO, like, is curiosity, being
Yeah.
very curious because your job really isn't to have all the answers, but it's to go out and figure them out as best you can and to create an environment where your team can thrive and people can, um, be able to have, resources and tools that, you're providing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and a lot of times that curiosity is what opens up the trailblazing and the innovation because you're saying, "Why can't we do it that way?" You start to ask
Yeah.
that question, and then people on your team are getting behind you because you're asking that question, which no one's ever asked and no one's ever done it in quite that way. So it ends up
Yeah.
inspiring, getting people behind you, your team, your investors, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree completely, and, we've gone through a lot of hiring and we've gone through and it's also about, like, training the people too. I think, like, training the people and you kinda have to go through it and do it yourself to be able to teach your team how to do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it becomes so important. Again, that accountability in terms of yourself, but also being able to kind of carry that down. So, Magnolias truly appreciate that definition. And of course, I appreciate your time even more. So, what I wanted to do
Thank
now was
you.
pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best people can get hold of you, your team, find out about all the awesome things that you all are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think one really cool thing that we're doing at Pendulum is so not only do we partner with brands on events and we have those opportunities, but a big part of it is the partnerships that we do work on and collaborate, and a part of our founder series with a lot of tech brands and other lifestyle brands is that we partner with them not only to feature and showcase their brand, but also build on their community. So we have like
Mhm.
partners that we have a blockchain partner, right? That we do events in New York and LA. And so we not only stand up the events for brands, but we build on their community and we add our own community to those brands as well. So I think that's a big one for us. And anyone can reach out to us on pendulumfounderseries.com or our Instagram, Pendulum Founder Series. And we have a LinkedIn, so that's called Pendulum. And so anyone can reach out to us there if they're a brand or a founder that would like to be featured or even a panelist. We always look for really interesting founders to join our panels. And so, yeah,
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Magnolia. Of course, to make it even easier, we're going to have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you, find out about all the awesome things that you all are doing and the impact that you're having. And I love, love, love everything you've been able to kind of do with those partnerships as well, too. I think that speaks to everything we've been talking around. I'm a big believer in like the abundant mentality that it's not either or, it's both and better. I think at its heart, it's around design thinking, around thinking about things differently and saying, how
yeah,
can we do both? Not either or, but both. So I love that you've been able to do that in so many different
yeah.
ways. Love that you took some time out with us today. And I hope you have a
Thank
phenomenal
you.
rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.